Tonight on Obscurity Report Live, the panel tackle 1989's urban crime thriller CRACKHOUSE, directed by Michael Fisher, written by Blake Schaefer, starring Greg Thompson, Jim Brown, Richard Roundtree, and Cher Butler. Released by Cannon Films on November 10th, 1989.
Well, that didn't work. Welcome back to the Obscurity Report. You know, the funny thing is, it worked, but before I went on the air, oh, I know why, because I turned it down because I had music playing.
Wicked Stone Gasman and some idiot named Lorne. Please welcome tonight's panel, Sam the Jackhammer Carlton, Wicked Stone Gasman, and some idiot named Lorne.
What's
no intro for me?
Well, there was, but that was on the 4-1, and Jonathan didn't show up.
Okay.
If it was the Jonathan one,
please welcome tonight's panel, Sam the Jackhammer Carlton, Wicked Stone Gasman, Jonathan 3 times inside London.
Anyway.
3 times inside where?
Inside the prison. That's
inside the crack.
Games. It was just Dan the Hat.
Yeah.
It was Dan the Hat. What a wonderful way to reintroduce a show in a live format for me to screw up the technology by having the music down low because I was playing music before we got on, which would have get this stream absolutely taken down immediately if I was to continue doing that. We have been away for a while.
What was the last movie we did? Return to Skull Mountain? Oh no, House on Skull Mountain.
I think House on Skull Mountain,
yeah.
and I think that was like November of 22 or something.
Are we sure it wasn't the last time Miguel was with us?
It might have been. I'm not sure what order that exactly goes in. I probably should know.
Like, I mean, if the last thing that we did had Miguel on it, then it's fine. We just, we could have never brought the show back. It went out with a bang. It's fine.
But we were dumb enough to bring it back. Specifically, I was dumb enough to bring it back. So what happened here is that a couple months ago, like many, many, many months ago, I started talking about CRACKHOUSE not being kind of loved. And I didn't have a place to talk about it because it's not a horror film. In no way, shape, or form is it a horror film. But there was one show where that we used to do called Obscurity Report where I thought that maybe we could squeak it in. But we hadn't done that show in a long time. So I reached out to you guys and said, do you want to do this thing? I don't think I told you I wanted to do it live. And you guys were dumb enough to watch this movie that I love and probably no one else on the planet does. And come on and scream at me about it. So that's what we're doing tonight.
All right, I'm going to start. Man, this movie averages a rape like every 18 minutes. It's 5.5 actually, if you want to count the attempted rape. But damn, that's a lot of rape. Like, just trigger warning.
Yes, trigger warning.
I don't believe in trigger warnings. But, I mean, that makes it sound like a very different movie than it is, though. I mean...
Is it?
It qualifies as a rape revenge movie. I mean...
Kinda. In the same way like Ken Russell's Horror does, I guess, then.
I was kind of like, I mean, it's kind of, I was expecting something a little bit like West Side Story-ish, right? And then it just...
Oh.
Wow.
Yeah. Imagine
you were
crack.
surprised,
Physical, dude. Oh my God.
It's called CRACKHOUSE.
The Jets versus the Cracks, or
I'm sorry, I'm not apologizing for this one. This movie is as advertised.
But then it's interesting because like it kind of wraps up like the end of Homer's The Odyssey when like Rick comes in and saves the day and like slays all of the suitors essentially. Except like he didn't actually have like any sort of real arc of his own for the most part. He just like kind of helped the cops nail the bad guys. But I think that's the only time in history that anybody has ever compared CRACKHOUSE to Homer's The Odyssey.
I guarantee it is.
Pretty much.
So 1989, man. Like, you got to think this is like the Rambo series is still kind of limping along like the year before. Yeah. That's what is action at that time, right? This is years before like things like Judgment Night or New Jack City, right?
Yeah, 2 years.
Yes. But it's like this thing comes out in theaters, although that's not where pretty much anyone saw it. Everyone saw this thing on cable. Everyone saw this thing on cable, except for me. I rented it. I didn't have cable.
Mm.
And I don't even know why I rented it, because I didn't really rent like urban thrillers. That wasn't what I was renting at that point in my life. I was just glomming onto every like low budget horror film that could be swept under the rug. But this I did rent, and I was blown away by just how consistently violent an antisocial movie can be. It's not a dark movie in this respect of it's not bleak, but nothing happy happens in this movie.
Mm-mm.
No.
Yeah. Nobody's okay at the end of it.
No.
I didn't hate the movie, but it was very vile and very filthy. And there were scenes that were very, very effective. I got to give it credit for. Look, I got to admit, I kind of cheered a little bit when the Canon logo came on. But it's like, wait a minute. This was released after Cyborg, after the company had went bankrupt. Menahem Golan went to the 21st Century Film Corporation, and Globus did Pathé with Alan Ladd Jr. So Canon was no more at this time. Well,
I'm pretty sure that Canon bought this thing.
You think? Oh, they didn't produce it. They didn't.
Well, I mean, there's very little information.
It seems like a Canon film in every aspect. Sorry to
well. So, I mean, there's certain things about it. I mean, if you know anything about how films get financed, I mean, this thing got financed by filming the Richard Roundtree stuff up front. I'm sure he was there on the set for a week.
Oh,
once you had him in the can, you could get a completion bond to finish this thing because it would make its money back.
Yeah,
I'm sure they shot the big climatic siege first, and his scenes in the cop shop, and that's pretty. I mean, because he's not his screen time, despite the fact that everyone puts him as the star of this movie, is pretty limited.
Very.
Yes. He's pretty great in it, though.
Yeah. I like Richard Roundtree and Jim Brown, who are both in it. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
You. Sorry.
Sure. There you go. There you go. There. I think one thing I like about this one, it's kind of somewhere sandwiched in between a blaxploitation movie, which it really isn't, because blaxploitation was long dead at this point, and a more serious urban thriller, which we were kind of getting into with New Jack City, I guess, a few years after this. But I like it. There is a gritty realism to the film. They cast actual gang members, which, much like Roberta Findlay's The Tenement, that kind of gives it somewhat of a feeling of being realistic. In fact, I think the lead actor, Greg Thompson, who plays Rick Morales, essentially the star of the film,
despite the fact that he's 8th build on the credits,
he tells a funny story about actual gang members going to the premiere and then him getting in trouble later and ending up in a prison transport with the same guy that took pictures with them at the premiere, which I think is hilarious. But it's somewhere in between. It does have that feeling of The Tenement where it's like, man, they were kind of right there shooting in some of these areas. And that does give it something that this movie wouldn't have been made in Hollywood just a few years later. It would not look like this.
No.
And I did appreciate it's downbeat. It's nasty. It's kind of got that, not quite as nasty, but Death Wish 2 kind of vibe about it, but also having that sense of humor that is there. It's a little too cheesy to fully, be taken seriously as a serious crime saga. The scene with Jim Brown is like, is that your bitch? And he's like, yeah. He's like, not anymore.
Yeah, used to be.
Used to be, yes. Used
Can
to
I
be.
just tell you that Jim Brown steals every millisecond he's in this thing?
Pretty much.
Fucking awesome.
I'm gonna say Clyde Jones is runner up to that because I was like, man, I swear I've seen him before somewhere, and I was like, that's the Soul Glow guy from Coming to America.
Yes.
Holy shit. Also, I never noticed how much he looked like. BT looks so much like the handsome Squidward in this movie. It's really hard. It's really hard not to notice.
I mean, you can never go wrong with Jim Brown and Richard Roundtree. I never got to meet Jim Brown, but I did meet Richard Roundtree, and that guy is as fucking cool as he is on screen.
So,
Nice.
yeah, everyone like thinks Jim Brown was a football star, which I know nothing about. But I mean, and everyone what he's known for really is he was Slaughter, right? In the Slaughter movies, which if you're a blaxploitation fan, that's royalty. They were low budget. They were definitely on the exploitation side. Whereas I would say like Shaft is almost just a mainstream film. It appealed to everyone. Mm-hmm. So whereas the Slaughter films were made for a very specific grindhouse market in the cities, and they're awesome. But Jim Brown doesn't get credit, man. Jim Brown was in the Dirty Dozen.
Mars Attacks too.
Yeah, I know. I was about to say thank you, Dan. Exactly.
Yeah. It's just like this guy was well capable of carrying a movie, and if they'd made a movie around that character, it would have been fine, because he's magnetic at all times. And before we went on the air, Stone and I were kind of commiserating about our one lost opportunity in this movie is that you get Richard Roundtree and Jim Brown in a movie, and they don't even talk.
They don't
let alone have a fight.
Nothing. Can I do a special shout out for Jim Brown real quick? Look, this is the Obscurity Report, and so this is a quintessential film to showcase on the Obscurity Report. But Jim Brown made a movie in 1970 called...
Oh! What happened?
I don't know. I didn't do it.
You're back. You're back.
Yeah, he made a movie in 1970 called Tick, 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 where he plays a newly elected sheriff who gets the position away from George Kennedy, who is the incumbent sheriff. He's going out. So there's racial tensions boiling up in this town. And despite the fact that they dropped the N-bomb a number of times, it's G-rated. But it's from the director of Lilies of the Field. It's a really good, from MGM, it's a really good racial tension drama where you can feel the heat of the South. Like, I mean, you could feel every drop of sweat brimming down. And when groups get together and they clash and then they start to work together, it actually becomes a very positive movie that is actually, obscure, but definitely worth seeing. Jim Brown is terrific in that.
He's very good. I mean, we also have to mention the director. If Michael Fishka doesn't sound familiar, I think a lot of you out there watching this show will remember Def Spa. Bad movie classic.
Wow.
Wait a second, Sam. That film you might have bigger problems with.
Def Spa is well, I'll save my thoughts on Def Spa because I think that might end up happening at some point. But he did My Mom's a Werewolf. He also did a forgotten movie, and I feel like a lot of people aren't going to know it, but it was called Delta Heat from 1992 with Anthony Edwards and Lance Henriksen. And it's about an LA cop who's investigating the death of his partner in the Louisiana swamps. And he has to enlist the help of this former cop that had his hand eaten by an alligator. Like, that's the storyline. Delta Heat.
Like, what's his name from Happy Gilmore?
I was thinking that.
Yeah, well, basically, Carl Weathers, but yeah.
Mambo.
He made unique movies.
Okay, no.
He made unique movies, but not a household name by any means. But holy shit, we got to say, because there's two. We mentioned one-liner that was great, but I think Richard Roundtree wins the day with not giving too much away if you haven't seen it, but we really need to pay our teachers more.
Yeah. Here's the thing, like, this movie makes a lot of big swings, like really surprising moves for this type of entertainment. The character of, and I'm going to ruin it because it's too good, even if you know it's coming. But like, it's telegraphed very early too. But the college principal, I think that's what he is. He's a teacher of some sort, but I
thought he was a guidance counselor for some reason.
It's
not
clearly
totally
in some kind of administrative role, but they refer to him as a teacher, so I'm not exactly sure what's going on there. But he's selling drugs to the kids, but he's like a secondary big bad.
Yeah.
And the two things about him that they're just great. The first thing is when he just pulls out a gun and kills a man, which you've seen nothing to indicate that he's capable of up to that moment. It's a great moment. But the other thing that I love about it is in any other film, any other film in this genre, that character wouldn't have been a school teacher. He would have been a corrupt cop. That's what that character would have been. The fact that they went so out of the box and his performance is so different from everyone else in the movie, it's wonderful because it shows that independence spirit of creating a movie where you can just do anything and you're not worried about what people expect. This thing subverts expectations a lot. I mean, the depth at which the girlfriend becomes a drug addict and how quickly it happens, insane. That's nuts. Again, do you guys, besides something like Requiem for a Dream, which is obviously like the deepest cut of that,
It's a little more.
do you think Hollywood Entertainment would ever do that now?
Yeah. I mean, also other out of the box things, like who puts crack in a humidor?
Oh, that's so great.
Oh, okay. But I have to ask, did anybody else catch this? Because it was really weird. The scene where Melissa is, she's already at the point where she's getting strung out and the teacher notices, even though he's the other big bad. And she's going into the classroom, and on the wall, there's a Mona Lisa, but it's not the Mona Lisa. It's the Far Side Mona Lisa with the cow. It's the Mona Lisa in this fucking movie for no reason whatsoever.
So credited as Cheryl Kay, but it's Cher Butler. A Playboy model, no real acting experience, no real acting for her after this movie. No. But she's frigging good in most of this. There's a couple lines that really don't play in a few moments which aren't great, which I just think I consider that a problem with the editor, who probably should have recognized and go, let's work around that, because otherwise her performance is actually, for this type of entertainment, pretty damn strong.
You get that vibe. I'm kind of surprised you didn't have a bigger B movie run after this. Like, she's beautiful, like she's a decent actress. I mean, it's hard to tell one performance, but she was good in this.
She's
good. I was like, why didn't you do like a Deathstalker movie or something, like at some point Corman grab you or something?
What I was really surprised of, because I hadn't seen it for a few years before I revisited it for this show, but I just have loved this film for a long time, because I love movies where nothing really happy happens, but it really hasn't aged as much as you'd think. A movie that's now 7 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe it looks like it's 10 years out of date, but it doesn't look like, a quarter of a century, let alone, plus 10.
I mean, I would argue retro action movies have aged really well. Like, they're just better. I'm not that way with like old horror movies versus new. I do think we get a lot of really good new stuff, but action movies, like, my God, I think if this came out now, everybody would be over the moon, because we just don't get anything like it. And it has balls. I mean, like I said, it not going to work for everybody. It is unpleasant in a lot of ways, but the charisma, we don't have a Richard Roundtree right now. We don't have a Jim Brown right now. And I do like the authenticity about it. A lot of people might consider this a B movie, but there is still that raw nastiness that they can't create anymore. And maybe that's because that same LA, it's not the same. It doesn't exist. So
it's easy to actually illustrate what you just said, because it's perfect. What you said is that the soundtrack, there's a lot of music that was created for this movie on this soundtrack. And I've actually, as for horror fans, which is everyone who's watching this, Joe Lamont actually was the music coordinator on this. If you know that name, it's because he did a lot of things in the genre. He was also a music coordinator on Return of the Living Dead Part 2, not the first film, but the second one, which he provided a song called Move Something for that soundtrack. And he's the guy who went out of his way to say, guys, if you want this to have a real urban feel, we have to have a real hardcore underground rap band in this. And at that time, the most controversial band in the world was Two Live Crew, who have 2 tracks on the soundtrack to this movie.
Yeah.
That's the authenticity you're talking about. I'd also say just the dialogue, actually, most of it feels pretty raw. The amount of F-bombs dropped in this movie for that time period is a rarity. In just a couple of years, it wouldn't be. But people were upset about the number of F-bombs that were in Die Hard, if you remember. That was a big deal. And this has way, way more than that.
Oh my God, yes.
There's some dialogue that's clunky. And there's some dialogue that's clearly was improvised on set that doesn't quite come off, I think. But in general, it does have a feel of a much more authentic urban experience.
I think some of the fight scenes were a little bit more improv, and that some of the
on my notes too,
casting actual gang members. There's portions, if you look at it, like the bathroom brawl and everything, where it looks like they're just going for it, and I'm sure people got hit with some haymakers.
Yeah, like I was, that scene and where Rick is attacking Chico in the jail, and then later on when he's attacking Stedman, he goes for the kidneys both times. And I was just like, I wonder if this guy used to box. I didn't bother to check.
Yeah, no, I did like that about it. It does have that raw feel. I love The Tenement, Roberta Findlay's grindhouse action classic, and that's a good one to double up with this. And there were some hidden royalty in here. F. Gary Gray, who has a small role as a gang member, he went on to direct the Hood movie classic Friday, Set It Off, the last Men in Black movie. I mean, he's done all sorts of stuff. So
maybe we don't include that Men in Black film on the resume.
Yeah, no, that we got Negotiators about.
Actually, that's an interesting point. Like, I think you'd agree, like, not that this doesn't look like its time period, but it's aged well in what it is. I don't think those Men in Black films have aged well at all, and they're much more recent.
Oh, yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah.
I was just looking on IMDb. Oh, I'm sorry. Are you still going, Dan? Or?
No, go for it.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, on IMDb, I was looking in the quotes section. They only have 3. Bitch, you stink.
Oh,
G for life, and fuck you, fucker. That's not a joke.
Oh yeah, I liked G's Don't Die, G's Multiply, and I was like, is this Bebe's Kids? I mean, that's how my brain is rotted from watching Bebe's Kids over and over as a child.
I remember that one. And on top of all that, according to the trivia section, Quentin Tarantino is a huge fan and has shown it in Alamo Drafthouse in Texas.
Not what I would expect, but okay.
He brought more attention on it, actually, because this movie was definitely obscure for a long time.
Oh, I can imagine.
Like 20 years later, he's screening the movie, and people start to discover it. Again, I'm glad Vinegar Syndrome put this out under their BSA line, because I think this is the type of movie that I do think is going to make a lot of new fans, And there is also exploitation royalty that we haven't mentioned in this, at least for me. I know this name's not as common, but Angel Tompkins, who plays the mom of Melissa. Yeah, she was the teacher from 1974, How to Seduce a Woman, Naked Cage. She was in The Bees with John Saxon. A lot of fun drive-in fare.
The teacher, that was remade into They're Playing with Fire.
Yes.
Oh my God. That's horrible. When I read about her, she had been on General Hospital for 30 years, and she won a shit ton of daytime Emmys for that. So I'd like to recommend to all the General Hospital out fans CRACKHOUSE.
Hey, you're trying to lead them to gold. I mean,
of course, of course. Take a break and watch this. It's a bit more authentic.
It is. I think the CRACKHOUSE is still standing, believe it or not.
Oh, God. No.
Several of the locations in the movie are still standing.
In what section of LA was it filmed?
I know they shot some stuff in Simi Valley. I think all over the place.
It looks like San Fernando to me.
Yeah.
Because if you look at even films like Miracle Mile, you kind of get that same vibe.
Came out the same year.
I will say this movie does have one thing that also that should draw people to it, which is it has constant retro tech porn. So the JVC RC 1470, the biggest, nastiest boombox that ever existed, the Thunder Lizard is in this film, many times, featured prominently, proudly. It was an $800 boombox back in the day that no one legally owned, and goes on eBay for a couple $1,000s if it works at all.
Really? Wow.
It's an amazing machine, and it could only exist when it existed. There was no other time in human history when you needed to bring something the size of a briefcase around that could shake windows in your apartment complex. So, the late great True JVC boombox is a star in this movie.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I'd expect it to work for $2,000 though.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna replace some belts. That's what I'm saying, because it wasn't direct drive, which is a pain in the ass, by the way. Pay someone to do it. Don't do it yourself.
Oh yeah.
We even get a tank at one point.
We get a riot tank.
Have a good day. Like, what the hell? I wasn't expecting that sign on the thing, on the barrel.
One thing I wasn't expecting when I first watched it, and when I've revisited it over the years, or this most recent revisit, was that the cops are good guys. They're allowed to just be good guys. And that's really rare. The cops are not scumbags. They don't entrap anyone. They're not predators. They're not on the take. They're not covert drug dealers. They're just cops.
Yeah.
They are like kind of like, hey Rick, you can like Rambo your way into the into the crack house for us. I mean,
yeah, but he wants to do that.
He does. He does.
They don't really put him up to it.
Well, we were still actually trying to win the war on drugs during this time.
Yes.
I mean, this movie is like, it kind of, it's kind of not, I wouldn't say it's propaganda for that, obviously, because, these things do happen. But yeah, I can see where it's like, yeah, the cops are just portrayed as good guys.
But that's rare for this type of movie, for the urban drama.
Yeah.
I mean, even the things that aren't directly analog, like Spike Lee's Summer of Sam, the cops are scumbags, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, you very rarely, I mean, you get a few years beyond this, like you very rarely had like a totally like positive portrayal of police in this type of film. Yeah.
And it probably comes down to, if you cast Richard Roundtree as the main cop in the film, it gives you a rare opportunity to do something kind of in this vein.
Roundtree was a badass. I mean, he did a lot. I think he could have had an even bigger career than he did. I mean, I can't remember. I think we might have been talking offline, but that Shaft remake we were talking about. I mean, that dude, he still had it. He still had it up until the end of his life. Like, I could still buy him as Shaft, going out there kicking ass. And
if Liam Neeson is still starring in this crap, then he could have done it.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I am a big blaxploitation fan, and I love that era of film. Those movies, they hold up so well. They really do. And I mean, again, I know this gets lumped in with blaxploitation. Once you had big mainstream black action stars, I mean, we're at the era of Wesley Snipes at this point. Yeah. Like, it wasn't blaxploitation.
We did have Mario Van Peebles' "I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker."
Yes, absolutely. Same year too. Yeah, hilarious.
His brother died of an overdose of gold chains.
Yes, action movies and comedies were a lot better at this time.
Oh yeah.
Well, both are basically extinct in America at this point, because what we call action films aren't action films, and comedies just aren't greenlit.
Are any of you fans of? There was that attempt at the blaxploitation Expendables with the original gangsters in '96 that brought back, Pam Grier, Roundtree, Jim Brown.
I remember "Don't Be a Menace While Drinking Your Juice in the Hood."
That was also hilarious. But yeah, original gangsters. It's the one that
title, I know.
Yeah, nobody remembers, but they tried to kind of. Fred Williamson, of course, was in it.
Oh yeah.
I don't know that it did much business, but '96. If you haven't watched Original Gangsters, check that out for another late in the game blaxploitation movie or homage.
how human is this movie though? Like, and movies from this period are just more human, but this in particular, because there's some non-actors actors, because there's a certain level of, we just felt like it, so we did it. So you might have a scene today where a couple in love make love in their car, but you wouldn't have them surrounded by like religious paraphernalia from, because it's mom's car.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of thing just is a little bit too left field, right?
Yeah.
Like, it also what makes the movie seem like it has identity, and it feels like someone actually built a world. You know, it is like downtrodden LA, but it's also not. It's also a fantasy version of that. But it feels very much like a complete thought to me, and a thought a person had, not a test group or a bunch of market research had. I know. I'd love. Go ahead, get your drink and get a drink in hand, because I'm about to do it. I look at like an Avatar movie as not cinema.
I agree.
In the way that Scorsese doesn't feel that like Marvel movies are cinema, which I'm sympathetic to his cause, but like that Avatar thing is the worst example to me. It's absolutely not cinema.
Dances with Smurfs.
At best, it's a video game where you can't control the characters. And I'm repulsed by that. Whereas something like this, flaws and all, and it has flaws. Yes, I don't think this thing had a continuity editor, and it doesn't need it. It doesn't need it. It is what it is, but it feels so human and so organic. Yeah, it's imperfect, but that's what's perfect about it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. The transition from like hooked on crack is like, I think, one scene. Pretty much.
Yeah, I mean that stuff happens fast. Like, because I've seen that happen to a few of my friends, and it not crack, but it go. Yeah, it's fast. So
it's hard to watch her in those scenes, being brutalized and everything. But like, I wish the love story had a little bit more impact. I mean, I thought in the when she visits him at the jail, I thought for sure she said she was going to be pregnant from the car. That would have added some drama.
Yeah.
Maybe. I mean, I don't know. I was a little disappointed at that aspect. But look, there were things about this movie I admired. There were performances I liked. And look, it is what it is. I will never see it again. I respect it. Go ahead and buy the Vinegar Syndrome Blu-ray if you want it before it sells out. I will not watch this again. Just because I respect it, but I will not watch it again.
I suspect Sam is in a similar boat.
No, I will watch it again.
I will.
It's just too icky.
Talking about it makes me want to watch it right now.
I hate gimmicks. I wanted the crack house set.
Yes. Yeah.
I would have paid more for a giant crack house because that would have been unique. Vinegar Syndrome, you failed. You failed.
Oh, you know what Vinegar Syndrome really should have done?
What?
They should have made a plastic crack cube, put it in a plastic bag, and put it in every case.
Yes, the crack rock edition. Which I'm disappointed. I have not seen Big Crack Rock in the chat tonight, nor have I seen Cliff Booth talk shit about Fairuza Balk on the Crack House.
Well, she wasn't born when this movie was made, was she?
Oh yeah, she was making movies by the time.
Oh yeah, this was only like 4 years out from Return to Oz.
Yeah,
something like that.
Yes, Big Crack Rock, you failed. You failed. If you see this later, I wanted to get your opinion on Crack House.
So, like, one of the things that I do appreciate too, that's already been said, but yeah, it feels like a movie. It has that air of authenticity. But like, I was fascinated by Jim's Burger Joint. Because that's where Rick has his job, and it's so funny because Melissa's trying to really talk him up to her mother. And it's like, your mother's passed out on the couch like every night. Like when you get home, your mother's already passed out from drinking too much gin, or, she's got some dude over. I don't think there's a lot you can do in this situation, but she makes it, she's trying to talk Rick up about him having a job and that he's going to join the Air Force. And, you know, and it's like those are very like realistic things, like when you don't have options in life, you know, and you grow up in a broken home or you're growing up in a poor environment. It's like, yeah, you know, it's like, oh, he's got a job. Oh, he's going to join the Air Force. Yeah. Like these are all your way out of that. But sorry, I got off on a tangent, but like Jim's Burger Joint, apparently that's where you go to pick up prostitutes. And I was just like, really? The burger joint? Because, you know, there's that one scene where where a car drives by and the guy is like talking to the prostitute through the window. And also that guy was like Timu Jerry Seinfeld. Sounded a little bit like Jerry Seinfeld, looked a little bit like him. It was like comedians in cars getting hookers. But yeah, I was just like, interesting.
Was that not the smoothest movie you've ever seen, though? The guy who drops something so he could try and look up the prostitute's skirt.
Dangerous.
That is a burger joint that still exists. I did my research. That still stands if you want to go to that place. That get a burger there. Bring up CRACKHOUSE. Yes.
But see, I love that stuff too. I love as a retail like freak. I love seeing like the world of the retail landscape at different times. And just the idea that I didn't get to experience like the deep urban, you know, what a burger joint looks like in 1989 in the ghetto.
Yeah.
So that it's a beautiful thing. And I fear that our entertainment has moved away from that too. We don't really show the world as it exists today. Maybe I can't see it. Maybe it's because it's all around us, but like I don't get to see things that look like things I wouldn't be able to experience.
We just did Vice Squad on Dead End Drive-In, and you look at that movie and it's like, man, that's in LA that doesn't, I mean, so much that just doesn't exist anymore. So much has changed, and they're like living historical monuments as much as they are films, because so much of it's just gone.
I always felt that way about Body Double. This Body Double takes you to a world that existed for a very brief time.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm too young to have experienced it, but you know, I've always wanted to go to like old school 42nd Street in the 70s. Yeah, I think, I mean, for a mainstream example, The Deuce did a pretty good job of representing that, but I never saw that in New York. That is completely gone. All of those theaters, just everything. And I mean, there was the seedy side of it too. I'm not trying to overly romanticize.
Well, that's pretty much what it was the seedy side of, until Giuliani and literally up to the Dinkins administration, including the Dinkins administration. All that still existed.
Yeah,
I definitely was able to experience the very tail end of it.
Yeah.
Not that I really went into any of those buildings. I never saw a movie on 42nd Street, but I did pass by them. Yeah, that's probably all I wanted to do at that age.
Yeah, it would have been fun to be able to walk around there during the heyday of 42nd Street. If I had a time machine, that would be
nice. Give it another 10 years, you might have your opportunity.
There you go. I don't know if we're going to get all that back, though. Disney's kind of taken over too much.
You want to walk around in those theaters where the floors are all sticky and the
You know what? As long as there's movie theaters, I'll walk on sticky floors. I'm more worried that there's clean floors because no one's going anymore.
I don't think I'd want to sit behind anybody. That is like one thing. Like I say, like, hey, I would like to experience it. The idea of people jacking off in a theater like that, I don't know. I'm like, I'm good. I'm gonna sit in the back, so I'm not.
Well, I mean, you want to sit all the way in the back so you can see all the jerking off.
Well, I want to not be jerked off on. Is the reason I said the back.
Okay.
The New York Ripper.
I don't want to be in the splash zone.
I don't know. Like, I feel like you could, shine a black light in there, and
it's like the old Gallagher like performances. Like, if you don't want to get wet, you're gonna sit back 3 rows. That's the rule. So
yeah, just like SeaWorld
or a Guar show.
That too.
There you go.
I have to say, when we cover movies on Obscurity Report, and mostly horror movies, obviously, because that's the channel, Although we'll talk a little bit about where this show, if we decide to continue it, because that's up to you guys more than it's up to me. Because just me talking about Obscurities isn't, that's like a different show. But the thing that I find that is really disturbing is that like these movies that are almost forgotten, and this one got saved for the moment anyway, but in 10 years it might be forgotten again. Is that like people really worked hard on all these movies, whether we're talking, Legend of Skull Mountain or whatever it is, anything we've ever covered. The idea that like there's not even a monument to these films, there's not really a fan base for these films, that they just are like random people come across them. Maybe they love the movies, maybe they hate them. But I worry that we focus so much on like the big pop mainstream entertainment. I'm not even doing the franchise thing right now. I'm just saying the big stuff, that it crowds out all these smaller films. Like, are people really watching this on Tubi? I mean, I suspect that's where.
That's where I saw it.
Yeah, but are people really watching it on Tubi, or are they just going for whatever's most recent that they've heard of?
I think there are people that are quite adventurous on Tubi, because I know because I see people on Twitter talking about, how Tubi is a great source for the older films, that you can't find on other services. So I know they exist.
Yeah, I'm hoping. I hope so, because that's where streaming might be actually preferable to physical media.
Yeah,
because you're not going to blind buy much, right?
No, well, you're not gonna. It's niche at this point. You're not gonna get the, 20-something that's gonna lay down $70 for something, even something wonderful like The Beyond. They're just never gonna do it. I don't mind. Look, it's about the films. If in the future we're still experiencing all these films and we don't get to own them physically, I mean, that sucks. But hey, the important thing is you got the film. You can watch the film. Tubi's very important. I hope Tubi doesn't go too corporate and then we don't get all this weird shit that's on there anymore. That is a fear. Like, I think you always have to have that. And, something like CRACKHOUSE, I really do think can find a modern audience. I think the name alone, there's probably people clicking on Tubi, but we talk about all these other genres and subgenres, Pinku stuff and, women in prison films and all of that. Or if you really want to get grimy, the Nazi exploitation films. Like, those aren't going to be on Netflix ever.
These roughies. I mean,
yeah, roughies. It's hard to like make the case for it, but porn used to be actual movies, believe it or not, for people who haven't dove into like retro porn. Like they were movies. Jamie Gillis was an actor. Paul Thomas was in Jesus Christ Superstar. Before he was, slinging dick. He was there with Jesus.
Behind the Green Door is considered an art house classic.
Yeah.
It is, literally.
Exactly.
And can I just say real quick, I got this as a blind buy in a Warner Archive sale. And I always knew about the film. I never saw it on television, aired ever. And I'm glad I got it. It'll probably never get upgraded to Blu-ray. That's fine. But I'm glad I got it, and I get to appreciate it now. I mean, Jim Brown was a really good actor.
There's a lot of weird movies, like, not weird, but, stuff like that
nobody's heard of. Nobody knows.
Oh, right. Yeah. Like, there's, like, some of the old Peplum, sword and sorcery type stuff that never even made it to VHS. Like, there's stuff out there that is already kind of lost to time.
Pretty much.
And, yeah. I guess what I'm saying is water power's got to be the next Obscurity report. Somebody understands that and is going to laugh, but
I think that it's important that when we find things that, even if you didn't like them, but that had a time and a place represented for cinema, we have access to it and we experience it, so that maybe so you never have to again if you didn't enjoy it. But it's important that we felt something while watch it, because I feel like too much today does not get genuine emotion out of you.
No.
The action genre is a great example of this, because I just will outright say that American action cinema has been dead since the Taken movies.
Mm.
It's dead. It's not alive. When I see an American action film, it's always lame. It's always just lame.
Except John Wick.
John Wick is the same fucking movie.
No!
No, dead serious. If I name a set piece, can you tell me which film it's from?
Probably.
Okay.
I mean,
you shouldn't have to answer probably.
Come on.
Which is the one he killed the guy with the book?
Exactly. So
Those
about
films
that,
are
there's an Indian action film that just came out with Sanu Saad in it, and it's called Fatah. In which it's a complete ripoff of a bunch of movies, but like transparently. I mean, they do the scene from the and this is my one exception, by the way, to American action films suck because I love the Equalizer films. But the first Equalizer film, the one where Denzel walks in, tries to buy the freedom of the girl from the Russian, and when he's insulted, he locks the door and turns around, assesses the room, and kills everyone. They do that exact scene, shot for shot.
Really?
In that same movie, the book kill from John Wick 2 is done. Framed exactly the same way. It's amazing.
Did you used to watch the Equalizer show?
I'd seen it. I didn't watch it like religiously, but
okay.
I will prefer the Denzel Washington.
Oh, okay. And I think they're making a fourth one too.
And a fifth. He's basically retired, but has agreed to do two more.
My God! He's going to go out with Equalizers.
Yep.
Oh, God. All right.
I don't know that that's a bad thing.
Mm-mm.
I think he puts in some hard work there, and I think the movies hold up really well. Which, I mean, I didn't see that last Gladiator film, but I'm guessing it's not going to survive the test of time.
No, well, he is fun to watch in it. I mean, it's different. It's kind of a more B. Well, some people would say Gladiator's a B movie with high production values, but yeah, it's worth watching for him. He's very charismatic and entertaining.
I'm a huge Ridley Scott fan, but there's Ridley Scott films I just kind of steer away from. By the same rate, I don't know. And that, like, I just couldn't.
Raised by Wolves broke my heart that didn't get a season 3. Great science fiction. I recommend that to everybody.
Yeah.
Ugh.
But I look at something like this and it feels like an action film. There's not a ton of action in it, but what's there is awesome. The story is compelling. The subject matter is still edgy.
Mm-hmm.
It's not an after-school special. That's the interesting thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's not some high-minded. You don't get the scene at the end where it's like, I mean, literally, you have lovers embracing each other and saying it's going to be okay at the end of this, but you don't get that flashed forward 5 years later and they have a picket fence and a kid on the way. It doesn't leave you thinking, okay, everything's going to be all right.
Mm-hmm.
What would Crack House 2 look like?
I don't know. One of them has AIDS. I promise you. I'm sorry. I'm not saying that to be rude, but like I was, obviously, like how many times did Melissa get raped? Quite a bit, and that's just what we saw. But the other thing that I was thinking of is like at the beginning of the movie, I didn't even realize that Rick was like the main character in the bathroom fight because this dumb motherfucker got sliced, by Chico, when he was trying to kind of break it up. I was like, that knife's already cut somebody else, and now it cut you, and now their blood is in you. Have fun, man.
We recast Tom Hanks as Rick.
Let's not do that. let's never do that.
Crack House 2, the AIDS drama. I don't know if I would have gone that route. I think you bust out Stegman somehow.
Yeah, Stegman's still alive at the end of the film. Again, I don't care about spoilers on this film because if
his brother Fred the Hammer Williamson busts him out of jail, now Rick's got to take
Redman.
I got an idea. For the Richard Roundtree and Jim Brown roles. Let's hire Kid and Play and call it Crack House Party.
I gotta go.
Kid and Play. Yeah, Crack House Party.
Jesus.
Where?
Cliff wants an LA AIDS Jabber crossover. LA AIDS Jabber is not quite the movie that title promises, but I mean, it is true. It is a guy. Yeah, He is an LA AIDS jabber.
What is that movie? Is it literally? I mean, it's not what it says it is, but
the serial killer, like that's just like jabbing people and infecting them with AIDS. It is. I guess
playing the long game. Okay.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
could be a little more wild than you would think, but I think that's probably on Tubi too, Sam. If you want to experience LA AIDS,
I don't know, man. I don't know. I think I gotta wait after Crackhouse.
I'm going to suggest you steer clear of Irresistible, and we'll leave it Irreversible, and we'll leave it at that.
I'll wait on that.
So if Crackhouse 2 had been made relatively soon after Crackhouse, I think we could have got John Daniels in a role too, from the lead star of The Great Black Shampoo, one of the ugliest of the blaxploitation films you've ever seen, and one.
Any Black Samson fans?
Oh, that's a messed up film too.
He has a fucking like lion just as a pet. That movie's awesome. I was friends with his granddaughter too.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I need
6 degrees of separation.
Don't everyone. I wish he really was stuck on that island with a fucking volleyball and never came home. Where the cast of Gilligan's Island found him and killed and ate him.
I can just imagine if you wrote Castaway and it's just like, yeah, Wilson just gets brutally murdered in front of him.
I mean, he did give the world Chet Hanks, so that's enough reason. Yeah.
That's true. I feel like people kind of just don't care about him anymore. Like his last 4 or 5 movies, it just feels like it used to be a sure thing.
Something's deeply off now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Something's off.
I think society doesn't care about things anymore.
That's true too.
I think it's just that's the issue at large.
I want Forrest Gump too. And I know that there's like the story in the 80s, but I want to see him like, let's just flash forward to now. Like he's like an online troll. Like he's just become totally unlikable.
I'd rather watch the porn version, Forrest Hump.
There you go. There's a couple porn versions of Forrest Gump.
No. Give me
Do you
Schindler's
ever feel like you're not a part of the conversation? Because right now I feel like I'm not a part of this conversation.
Give me Schindler's Fist. I'd like to see that too.
Did you just say give me Schindler's Fist? That's definitely out of context.
I'm feeling like there's a community that can help make that happen for you.
Woo!
Stedman will hook you up.
Oh, Stedman, yeah.
I wanted that to be like, I don't know, like Oprah's husband or something. Like just
look, that's the only Stedman I knew of, so of course I was thinking of Stedman Graham the whole time.
Yes.
Very disappointed when it was like Stedman is clearly his last name and not his first, and I was like, missed opportunity.
Guys, do you have any final thoughts, recommendations? Where would you rank this?
I would rank this one pretty high. I mean, again, it's not going to play for everybody. It is a mean movie. There's definitely meaner movies from Cannon. But it's a good time for the right audience. I do think that there is an audience for this movie.
Oh, definitely.
I'm kind of curious now that Vinegar Syndrome put it out, what this looks like maybe 5 or 10 years from now, how people look back on it. Cliff Booth definitely threw out one that's meaner than this movie. That might be the meanest Charles Bronson movie. Yeah, I like this one a lot, but it's an acquired taste for sure.
Look, if you're a Cannon fan, you'll probably be in heaven. Okay, yeah, I mean, even if they didn't directly produce it, even if it was just a pickup or a distribution thing, I mean, it has Cannon. It has that written all over it. And for what it is, like I said, it's fine. I respect it. It tells a simple story very effectively. It's just a little too nasty, even for me. Even for the guy that likes I Spit on Your Grave. Yeah.
Even for the guy that just asked for Schindler's Fist.
Just ask for Schindler's Fist. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you like urban crime dramas or crime dramas in general, yeah, I mean, give it a shot. It's, it's fine. It's just, one of those movies that I won't go out of my way to watch it again.
Yeah.
It's like 5.5 rapes is a lot. Like, that's a lot. That's a big ask to sit through again.
I think as a movie, this is probably a C, but for my enjoyment, it's like an A-.
Fair enough.
It's mean. It's mean. It's reckless. It does unexpected things. It shows you things that you couldn't have seen in your lifetime. It takes you places emotionally that are a little bit more complex than what we're getting now. And performance-wise, I think we got a lot more naturalistic acting here than we get now. Everyone's a cartoon today. Yeah, everyone's a cartoon. And so it reminds me of a time period that I really enjoyed going to see movies. And although I didn't see this in the theater, I wish I had. I wish I would just have been getting of the age where they would have let me in to see it. But just I wish we had more like it. And yet that's not a recommendation that everyone should run out and see it. But if you like mean cinema, if you want to see something that feels a lot more human, including a lot more traumatic, this is that. And it's out there. It's a beautiful thing that's out there. You can get it on Tubi for free. You have no excuses not to take your rumble with it. If you find you love it after watching it on Tubi, which, by the way, the Tubi print looks like shit. There are better prints online that you can watch for free, but Tubi's the legal way.
YouTube.
It is on YouTube. It's on OKRU. There's better prints almost everywhere. But Tubi gets someone paid, presumably, in some form. So you have to recommend that. But there is the Vinegar Syndrome release, which I do not own. I probably should, but I don't at the moment. Dan's the big winner there.
Mm-hmm. It'll be on sale. This one's not selling out or anything. So
no.
If you're patient, you'll get it on sale.
All right. So that's where we'll leave it. Guys, one last question. You three. Do you want to do this again?
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
100%.
In that case, we will be back next month. Stay tuned.
Sweet.